mocha.
Thanks. That's convenient. You know, it's never been easier to be a consumer. This is a perfect example. But while enjoying a cup of coffee freshly brewed from beans grown on an Indonesian hillside halfway around the world, I'm actually able to do a little research online, which got me to thinking, whether it's a couple mouse clicks or a 3-block walk, everything I ever want or need is readily available. How is that possible? Well, I don't know the answer to that question, but fortunately I know someone who does. Dr. Zachariah, how are you? So help clarify this for me. How are these products so readily available?
Well, that's supply chain management. Ultimately, we're all consumers. We want to have the ability to purchase the products that we want, when we want it, where we want it, how we want it, at a price that we can afford. In fact, when you look at the number of steps that are required to get these products and services to the marketplace, that's called a supply chain. And if you source those products from around the world, that's the global supply chain.
And why is supply chain management important now?
Excellent question. It's the ultimate competitive advantage. There are universities and colleges that have developed courses and degrees related to supply chain management.
And as that field changes and evolves, do the opportunities change and evolve as well?
Absolutely. There are so many different jobs that are related to supply chain management, and it's constantly changing because the marketplace is changing. What worked for one product and one customer does not necessarily work for another product and another customer.
I think I'm catching on, but it's still a little overwhelming. Is there any way to simplify that?
When a company starts to look at their supplier, and their customer's customer, that's supply chain management. You know, I belong to an organization called the Council of Supply Chain Management Professionals, or CSCMP.
And who are they?
Well, they're made up of individuals who belong to companies that are found in multiple industries all over the world. Maybe I can get a hold of those colleagues of mine and you can actually go meet them and see supply chain management in action.
Really? That'd be great.
Why don't you go and learn all about supply chain management and enjoy yourself? And let's meet up when you get back and see what you've learned.
Will do. Thanks.
I was already familiar with my role as a customer, but before setting off, I wanted to familiarize myself with the individual links that make up the global supply chain. What I discovered is that a supply chain is a cycle, but if you had to pick a logical place to begin, it would be marketing. Prior to anything being produced, it is in a company's best interest to predict the level of demand. This is achieved by conducting research which helps identify potential markets and forecast projected sales. Once markets are identified and demand is established, the product design phase begins. At this time, the specifications and materials required for efficient and cost-effective production are decided upon. After a prototype is designed and tested, it is time to secure suppliers who provide the raw materials and components that will be used to create the finished product. Manufacturing is the next process. Production lines are developed to transform the raw materials and assemble the components into a finished good that can be sold to customers. Manufacturers must then get their product to market with the help of logistics. Logistics entails the planning, coordination, and execution required for distribution to the customer. Depending on the product, a customer could be a wholesaler, a retailer, or a consumer like me. But the supply chain doesn't end there. Sometimes it's necessary for products to flow back up the supply chain, as is the case with returns, repairs, and recycling. This process is known as reverse logistics. Reverse logistics also provides data and feedback that manufacturers can use to make improvements in their products, which brings us back to the beginning of the supply chain. All manufacturers have one thing in common: their reliance on raw materials. It's the responsibility of plant managers to maintain the supply of these materials so production can satisfy customer demand.
On a daily basis, we bring in raw and packaging materials into our facility. We convert our raw materials, major component being oil, add in various ingredients, convert that into margarine, and from there, once it's produced, we package it and we send that to our distribution center. Then the product is ready for shipment to our customers and then our consumers.
By tracking sales and projecting future orders, manufacturers are able to streamline production and eliminate excess inventory.
Our customers are becoming more satisfied with our ability to reduce our inventory levels and be able to provide them with product when they want it. It allows them where they don't have to stockpile a bunch of product and carry that extra inventory and have those dollars tied up, and that's cash for them, for our customers, and then they could use that cash for other means within their organization.
$1.493 trillion is the average investment in all U.S. business inventories in agriculture, mining, construction, services, manufacturing, wholesale, and retail trade. In perspective, if you were to spend $1 million per day on inventories, it would take 4,090 years to spend the total amount.
If you have a computer, there's a chance that that chip inside that computer came from this company, Intel. I'm in Chandler, Arizona, and I'm going to go inside to see how the folks at Intel handle their supply chain management concerns internally.
We can make the best products in the world. We can have superior manufacturing facilities, but at the end of the day, the supply chain is what interfaces with the customers.
How does your formal training apply to what you're currently working on?
Logistics wasn't something that I actually studied in any of my coursework, but it was something that really fit in with a background in design, a background in systems, assessing systems and the interaction of equipment and people and data. It's given me the opportunity to go to the Philippines, Malaysia, Amsterdam, Puerto Rico, interacted with teams and got to learn the way they work, get very different points of view from my own, and turn that into better and better designs.
What's happening is we're becoming much more analytical in nature than we used to be. So a lot of the coursework and learning that I did on statistics is coming into play now. So the things you actually learn in school actually directly are applying to the work I'm doing today.
And what do you do currently?
I'm responsible for the worldwide strategy for Supply Network. So what basically that is getting a feel for what locations we need to put in place, what new systems and methodologies we need to improve our supply chain responsiveness to our customers.
For a vision of things to come, I was directed to Intel's supply chain guru, Jim Kelso.
We believe that the supply chains of the future will be readily adaptive. They will have a sensing environment where they can detect a change in the entire ecosystem immediately, have programmed responses to those changes where we know what to do when certain events happen and actually be self-correcting. So the supply chains will behave like a flock of birds. You see a flock of birds flying in the sky, one bird moves, not necessarily the front bird, and the entire flock changes. That's the way our supply chains need to respond. Anything in the chain, an excursion, a strike, a customer behavior change, something happens, and the entire supply chain is fluid enough to react as fast as a flock of birds.
I'm here at the Motorola Computer Group in Tempe, Arizona, to see how supply chain management comes into play in a manufacturing facility. Let's take a look inside.
I first spoke with the plant's general manager, Warren Evans.
We are specialists in making computers that go inside of other things. So if you've ever had a CAT scan or an MRI, the brains of that big machine is a Motorola Computing Group product.
How does manufacturing, in your opinion, fit into the whole concept of supply chain?
Well, the supply chain, I'm a customer of a supply chain. I'm also a supplier. So I'm in the middle of a large supply chain. They're little pieces that are built by manufacturers around the world. We bring those in here, we assemble them, and our pieces go to someone else who then assembles that into something larger and sells it to a consumer.
Following Mr. Evans' recommendation, I set off to meet with Glenn Knight.
This is part of the whole supply chain operation and process because it includes much more than just transportation, inbound or outbound. There's a lot of different components to it, and we have to make sure they all come together at the right time.
All right, so tell me how this area fits into that piece.
As you can see, there's thousands and thousands of parts that go into one of our circuit boards. It all has to arrive at the right time so we can get it into the production sequence or we can't complete the board.
And you have to know exactly how many of these tiny little pieces are on one of these reels that come from somewhere else that you can use to put into this that's going to get shipped somewhere else.
Right, and that's why the supply chain is so important, is because we have to work very closely with forecasting, with planning, with our purchasing groups to make sure that it all happens at the right time.
At first glance, the shipping department was nothing like I expected.
I'm a little surprised because I imagined a shipping area being like a humongous warehouse with tons of boxes packed on, on top of each other, and this is not that kind of shipping area.
This is not that kind of shipping area. We don't ship full container loads of product. are full truckloads of product. These are high-value goods made to customer specifications, so we try to get them through production and out as quickly as possible directly to our customer.
Whether you're producing margarine or motherboards, manufacturers are extremely dependent on their supply chains. Inbound raw materials must be coordinated for processing, and outbound products have to get to market. This is the job of logisticians and the transportation companies they represent.
So Gene, tell me a little bit about C.H. Robinson and what the company does.
We're responsible for taking the products everybody manufactures and get it from point A to point B. Each individual person in our company has the discretion to make decisions about business every single day.
So tell me a little bit about what's going on in the back.
Oh, there's a lot of excitement in the back. We have 40 logistics professionals back there that buy and sell transportation every single day. We're a multimodal company, so we do a lot of different types of services for our customers.
So Dave, I'm talking to some of your colleagues about what actually goes on back here. Tell me a little bit about what you do and how you fit into all of it.
Say I call you up and I know you move, steel, for example. I call you up, introduce myself, tell you in a sense what I'm all about, and ask basically where you move freight from. If you're moving from your warehouse in Detroit, for example, to Chicago, and then basically give you some quotes on it, see if I can find equipment. And a lot of the things we deal with on a day-to-day basis is different kind of problems. I don't like dealing with problems, but I like coming up with solutions to these everyday problems, and that's where I get my satisfaction.
So Tira, how did you actually end up at C.H. Robinson?
I was looking for a career in something fast-paced. I don't want to do the same thing day in and day out. I don't like repetitiveness. And the transportation industry, logistics, supply chain, it's very fast-paced. I'm doing something different all the time.
So was this what you studied in college, or was your focus on something else?
I actually studied international business and Spanish in college, and with that I get to use that as well with logistics because I handle the Spanish-speaking customers that call into our office, and I also handle dispatching carriers that call in that don't speak English and making sure that they get to where they need to be.
And where does your sense of fulfillment come in this job?
My sense of fulfillment comes when I walk into a store and I see the product that I moved on a shelf, and I know that I made a difference for that company and I'm the one that got that product there.
While C.H. Robinson provides logistics services to its clients, there are many other companies that operate the equipment necessary to transport products on a global scale.
Wow, this is amazing. So Greg, tell me about where we're at and what's going on here.
Well, Dale, we are at the port of LA Long Beach, one of the busiest ocean ports in the world. This is where a majority of our apparel goods come into the United States. We do thousands of containers through this facility.
Where's all this stuff coming from?
It is coming from all over the world, literally. We do sourcing of our product on the Pacific Rim, in India, Sri Lanka, and Turkey. It comes from all over the place.
Once shipments arrive from overseas, retailers like The Limited often use third-party logistics providers to handle their merchandise.
The level of sophistication that third-party providers like Performance Team really give a business, whether it's a startup business or a well-established business like us, is the flexibility of having a world-class logistics organization as a true partner.
For more details about third-party logistics providers, or 3PLs, Cliff Katab gave me a tour of Performance Team.
This particular facility is 425,000 square feet where we do a lot of our supply chain management and distribution out of it.
Is this something that when you started out in this business you had a concept of that was vague, that was clear, or did you learn more about this as you were going along?
I had no idea when I started. I started on the dock, I started loading containers and driving forklifts. I had no idea what it was. And as the layers started to unravel, I realized that this is big industry, this is big business.
So tell me about your company's position in the supply chain specifically.
In our world, we've got some retail customers like Limited, and for them what we would do is we're one of their distribution centers as well as one of their delivery agents. So what that means is we'll bring their product in, we will do any kind of value-added services, and we'll take those cartons and we'll send them out to the stores and we'll actually deliver to their stores.
To better understand the concept of value-added services, I spoke with Owen Schmidt.
Value-added services is really an operation whereby we take merchandise and we add things like price tickets and hangers for the purpose of being able to open it up out of the box and put it right onto the selling floor. To take that process that could be done in the factories in Asia and give them more flexibility in things like suggested retail price, as well as how they want to present the merchandise to their customer.
So wrap it up for me and tell me what makes being part of the global supply chain really interesting.
Well, I think a huge component within our company is the camaraderie we have as a team. We have people with senior leadership and years of experience, and we have young, energetic people coming straight out of college who have new, fresh ideas. With the growth potential, the diverse nature of the business, and the camaraderie, if you put all those components together, that's what makes the supply chain logistics field so interesting.
I'm here in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I'm going to talk with Malcolm Winspear. He's the CEO of Power Freight Systems, and he's going to teach me a little bit about how his 3PL system is different from others we've seen.
Power Freight is it's a small niche third-party provider based here in Silicon Valley, California. We provide warehousing, transportation, expedited air freight services, typical third-party services to high technology companies based here and across the United States. One of our major customers, for example, is Novellus Systems, and they work with semiconductor manufacturing for integrated circuitry. So they're doing silicon wafer manufacture and imprinting. A very sophisticated business. The equipment that they have is very large, very sensitive equipment.
Is that what makes your company a niche company?
It's a niche not only in the customers that we service, but also with the services we provide for them. If you look around, most of our product is in crates. It's very expensive, it's very large, it requires special handling. We have tilt sensors and shock sensors and sometimes temperature sensors on it. This is the epitome of customer service. Our customers require dynamic service capabilities, and every shipment is different, every day is different, everything we move for them is unique.
How long have you been doing this?
I backed into this about 20 years ago. I was actually hired out of college by a retailer to go into store operations. And I had the good fortune to work with an individual who said, you know, before you work in store operations, you really need to go to distribution to understand how the product flows. So I started by unloading trucks on a receiving dock at 5 o'clock in the morning. And once I was in distribution, I never got out of it. The distribution organization of most any company is the lifeblood of the organization. It touches every aspect from finance and accounting to customer service to end users, customers, to human resources, to procurement and sales. It touches everything. And it's just an exciting field to be in.
As technology advances, so does the capability of supply chain managers. When fulfilling customers' orders, it's important to balance speed with accuracy. And with innovations such as the Vocollect Talkman, 3PLs are able to maximize efficiency in their warehouse operations. The Talkman is a voice-activated device which allows selectors to interface directly with inventory tracking systems.
797 1
3911.
To witness the Vocollect Talkman in action, I visited Burris Logistics in Maryland.
Dale, you might want to take one of these before we start looking through the facility.
After suiting up, I followed Richard into the frozen food warehouse to see their operation firsthand.
We recently initiated Vocollect voice recognition systems here to help us on the shipping side. It frees up the selection operation, yet gives you plenty of accuracy, helps productivity, and all of this information feeds right back into our systems, which helps our administrative side of the business.
How much of an impact are logistics costs on profit margins? When you purchase a box of breakfast cereal at your local supermarket for $3.60, the retailer earns a profit of 5 cents. The logistics costs, the cost to get the box of cereal through production and to the store shelf, is 37 cents. If you can cut the logistics costs by 1 cent to 36 cents, the supermarket will increase its profit by 20%. Advancements in computer processing have enabled professionals to manage supply chain data in real time. This gives them the ability to project the needs of their clients and provide cost-saving solutions.
We generally take a lot of historical data and say, what could we have done? Had we done it this way, what would have cost? And what type of savings would that have brought us? And then really use that to build a value proposition on how we can save them money. I get pretty excited when I can come into an environment, understand a business problem, take the math that I love and studied, and put that on the table apply it to their business problem and really solve it and bring them value.
Mathematical modeling helps to forecast the logistics required to move products to market. In some instances, the opposite is necessary. The process is called reverse logistics and is Genco's specialty. Reverse logistics is responsible for the goods, services, and information that flow back up the supply chain, and if properly managed, it can help maintain a company's competitive advantage, as is the case with one of Genco's clients, Sears.
Things that are sold at Sears, the consumer brings them back, they break, the Craftsman tools get a lifetime warranty, they bring them back. Genco's been able to take that and turn it into cash. What we're able to do is go through a series or a sequence of sorting to determine what's the appropriate disposition. Some of it may be repackaged and put back into the retail store. Some of it might be sent overseas. Some of it might be sent to a liquidation center. And so it's found cash that in the supply chain management historically was just disposed of.
While some third-party providers offer operational assistance, experts from consulting firms such as Accenture assist with strategic planning and implementation.
In my role at Accenture, we work with really companies across all various industries and so forth. And the type of work we do is everything from supply chain planning, strategy, operations, fulfillment, sourcing, and procurement. But at the end of the day, what the clients really are looking for is ways for us to work with them to help them either improve customer service or improve productivity with the end goal of being able to allow them to differentiate themselves from the competitors. And supply chain is a very attractive area. It's a relatively new area and it's diverse, and it provides for a great growth platform for an individual. And in some companies, individuals that are now CEOs were at one point in time in their career supply chain managers.
Some companies rely on the coordination of third-party specialists and in-house logistics operations to effectively manage their supply chains.
I'm in Columbus, Ohio at Limited Brands. In Southern California, Greg Sayers told me a little bit about their global supply chain. And today, I'm hoping to learn a whole lot more.
After getting the day's rundown from Greg, I was off to my first stop, a FedEx air terminal.
So Marilyn, in Long Beach, we saw how some of Limited Brands product enters the country that way. Tell me a little bit about this air freight and what goes on here.
Well, Limited Brands utilizes air freight services from around the world. We actually service about 56 different origins over 5 different continents last year. So this particular plane came from Hong Kong this morning. There was freight turned over by vendors actually yesterday afternoon. It was on this plane last night, it departed, and here it is in Columbus, Ohio, less than 20 hours later.
And then from here, where's all this stuff going to go?
Well, from here, the goods aren't customs cleared yet, so they'll go to a facility here in Columbus where the goods will await customs clearance. They'll be broken down off of the air pallets that you see and made ready for our distribution centers.
Since a majority of air freight comes from countries abroad, it's mandatory that the cargo clears customs. This is achieved with the help of in-house and third-party customs officials.
So Denise, you're not an employee of Limited Brands, but you play a big part in what they do, right? Tell me about what you do.
I work for a company called Star Air Freight, and we are their third-party logistics provider. And what we do is provide the air transportation for the cargo and the documents from the point of origin to the destination.
So without these documents, it would be kind of like me trying to enter a foreign country without my passport, correct?
Exactly. This is like the passport for the cargo coming into the United States.
Back at the Limited campus, the wide variety of imported products are received and handled by their respective divisions. I was fortunate enough to take a look at the Victoria's Secret supply chain. I spoke with Carla Jeffries, who's in charge of the Victoria's Secret direct fulfillment operation.
Tell me about some of the differences that go on in the way you handle things, like directly from warehouse to customer.
Right. I think the biggest challenge is that there's no buffer between us and the client, which means we need to get it right the first time. It's about the presentation of the product. It's about picking the right item and getting it to them in the time they would expect it to. Otherwise, we don't necessarily always get a second chance as you would in a store.
Is this something that you have a background background in? Is this something that you studied in college?
My college background is in economics, that's what my degree is in, and was looking for a change in career, and a lot of things are essentially the same, meaning the people, the processes, and you're managing inventory as well, but it's how you bring all of those things together, and it's how you ultimately get them turned around and get the things out the door that make it so challenging and so fun.
In contrast to direct fulfillment, some limited brands such as Bath & Body Works require large warehouses to store merchandise destined for their many locations. For more details, I went to Mike Strebe.
I'm the Senior Manager of Operations, servicing 1,600 Bath & Body Works stores and also the White Barn Candle Company.
That's a lot of responsibility.
Yes, it is.
How did you get involved in that?
I started out part-time here at the Limited. Was making boxes, filling totes, those sorts of things. And I had a business degree, and I was going into productions and operations management. And obviously, I got more excited about warehouse operations as I was just being a part-time hourly associate here.
In addition to promoting from within, Limited Brands recruits and employs recent graduates from universities that offer degrees in supply chain management.
My initial focus was in the Ohio State University's business program. Now, specific as to which major, I had not chosen that going into it. I was introduced to the logistics field once I got to Ohio State and started exploring the different options within their school of business.
And what do you find exciting about it?
Oh, I love that it's logical, it's step by step, and it's tangible. I love the fact that you can make a decision and you can go out on the floor and see that change.
Can we do that?
Absolutely. There's a lot going on out there, so it's a little noisy.
Oh, I can handle it.
Okay.
Well, you weren't kidding. It really is loud in here.
Well, yeah, that noise is definitely driven. If you look above, we've got miles and miles of conveyor just within this one facility. You can see how the cartons are being inducted from the distribution centers, of which they're hitting multiple scanners. Those scanners then are taking those 20 million cartons that we do annually, and they're diverting them down specific to one of our 46 delivery agent location doors. Our job is to make sure that the trailer was dispatched from this facility, and it makes it into that delivery agent location, and then the entire process from that point forward.
The total dollar amount spent on logistics in the U.S. in 2003 was $936 billion. That equals the gross domestic product for the countries of Switzerland, Sweden, Portugal, Ireland, and Hungary combined. In business, having a well-managed supply chain can make people money. In life, it can make people safe. Areas of government depend on and develop the latest in logistic planning techniques. I had an opportunity to speak with retired United States Army Lieutenant General William Gus Pagonis, who has managed supply chain operations in both the public and private sectors.
I went into the infantry first for a couple of years, and I transferred into transportation. Spent about 30 years covering all parts of logistics. It was a great training ground and a proving ground to allow me to establish expertise in all kind of movement of product. But my command was around 150,000 troops. My budget was probably around $60 billion, and I was responsible for coordinating and setting up 520,000 combat troops that had to be housed and fed. So it was a perfect integration to when I get out to go work at Sears, because the mission's the same. The only difference is instead of moving ammunition, water, and food, you're now moving dresses, appliances, and those kind of things. So the two mesh together very well. In the military, you become multifunctional. And what that term means is you know about transportation, you know about warehousing. There is a tendency in the civilian sector for young people to become just transportation experts or just warehouse experts. The integration of all that can be done much easier if you've worked in all aspects of the logistics functions. So it's truly a discipline. It's great for young people to get into, and has great potential, and it's a lot of fun, because integrating all these logistical functions is never going to be easy. Now, also in the civilian sector today, the emergency supply organization that's been established with FEMA is very important. When an incident occurs, you have to have all these products warehoused in the right places across the United States, get trucks there, load the trucks, and move the product to where the disaster occurred.
Here in Memphis, one such team, Tennessee Task Force One, has to rely on an intricate supply chain and logistics model to do their job effectively.
My first stop was the Memphis Fire Department Academy, where Tennessee Task Force One is headquartered. I met with Task Force Commander Colonel Robert Milner to better understand the importance of supply chain management to their mission.
How important is logistics and supply chain management in say, Tennessee Task Force One?
Oh, it's extremely important. It's what keeps us going in the field. We'd be dead in the water without the equipment, the food, the water. It takes a lot of logistics support to keep one of these teams operating in the field.
So tell me some of the emergencies or disasters that Tennessee Task Force One has participated in.
Well, of course, the big one was the Pentagon in the aftermath of 9/11. Tennessee Task Force One helped in the recovery operations there. We responded to the Columbia Space Shuttle, where we sent some dogs and handlers and search team managers to help in that recovery effort.
From the academy, I was off to visit the Task Force Ready warehouse, managed by the husband and wife team of George and Pat Lewis.
So George, we're in the logistics warehouse. Tell me about the facility and what you have in here and what it's all for.
It's on standby, and you're talking like 60,000 pieces of equipment and stuff that we have to load on trucks and then take to the scene. In between deployments, it's our responsibility as the logistics to maintain the equipment. We've got 72 hours to where we've got to actually inventory each piece of equipment, make sure that it's fit, and then get it back into service. It's hard, but it's a lot of fun.
Well, we always have been, got to be in the middle of it. I can't stand back and let somebody else have the fun. And I love power tools, so I've always been, into the rescue stuff. Once I got in logistics, I had to learn how everything works. And being on the rescue team, you just get to play with rescue toys, but in logistics, I get to play with everybody's toys.
The toys Pat referred to are in fact the latest in search and rescue technology. Fiber optic cameras and microphones to locate survivors under the rubble, power tools to extricate them, and chemical, biological, and radiation sensors to ensure the site is safe to work in. Depending on who you ask, some task force members might say that their most valuable tool is not in the warehouse, but rather in their house.
So Robert, we're at a canine training facility. Tell me what we're going to see here.
Okay, well, what this is, it's a simulation of a blown up building or an earthquake. When they send a task force in to a disaster, they send the dogs in first. And what we've got here is 2 victims hidden in the pile, and we're going to send a dog in to search the pile and to find the victims. We're the critical part of the supply chain, and we get in there first, and it's a very time-sensitive situation, and we want the dogs to find the humans as fast as we can so we can get them out of there.
With my travels complete, I realized that my journey along the supply chain had brought me full circle. It was time to catch up with Professor Zachariah. We were scheduled to meet at my favorite restaurant, but before dinner I went behind the scenes at Ben Pao to see the global supply chain in action from a retail perspective.
Every day I have to make sure that our distributors in all of our markets are delivering the freshest possible ingredients to our restaurants. Ben Pao is a Chinese restaurant, not quite traditional in every extent, but it has some very traditional dishes, and Let Us Entertain You, it really prides itself in its versatility and variety. And so what Chef Jim does is use a lot of really wonderful, fresh, bright ingredients that complement all of the dishes and really bring it home for you as a consumer so that you understand the food and obviously that you really enjoy the food.
Chef Jim, thanks for letting me in your kitchen. I was talking with Martha about supply chain management and how it applies to a company like Let Us Entertain You.
From the corporate level, they do such a great job of bringing in products that we normally couldn't get and sourcing out odd items that we can bring specialty items to the table for the customers. We use a lot of prime beef. We use an antibiotic-free pork. We use a lot of specialty produce items, as you can see, like a Fresno pepper, Chinese long beans, Chinese eggplant, things you don't normally find on a day-to-day basis. So we source those out.
So essentially, with an effective supply chain, you can get items that were literally picked from the sea the day before in your restaurant the next day?
Yes. We have seafood, fresh fish flown in daily. Obviously air freight and that kind of stuff is coming in out of Hawaii, it's coming out of the East Coast, it's coming out of the Gulf, all over the place.
I hear you have some pretty incredible appetizers here.
We do a fantastic job with some shrimp wontons. And I know it is getting a little warm in here. If you'd like to go have a seat in the restaurant, we'll bring some out for you.
Be happy to.
Great.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, welcome back, Dale. Good to see you. Thanks for the invitation. Judging from what I just witnessed in the kitchen, this is going to be a great meal.
So, I've heard you had quite an experience.
To say the least, I met some great people who were very patient and informative. It was fascinating. Overwhelming, but fascinating.
You know, companies now compete on the basis of how effectively they manage their supply chain.
You know, that's what really stuck out, the pervasiveness of the supply chain in every industry. I mean, every good or service has a supply chain that needs to be managed by a specialist in order for business to run effectively and efficiently.
Spoken like a budding professional.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but I definitely know a lot more than I did before.
Dale, do you like wontons?
Sure do. I saw Chef Jim preparing them in the kitchen.
Why don't you tell me about the supply chain associated with one of the main ingredients found in wontons, and that's wheat?
Always the professor. All right, I'll give it a try.
Where do you want to begin?
On the farm. This is where the raw materials are obtained, in this case wheat.
So far, so good. What next?
Well, the wheat is harvested by the farmer and sold to a middleman who processes the grain. Now, once it leaves the field, the raw wheat grain is transported to a third party who stores it in elevators until it's ready to be shipped to the mill. In this instance, the mill acts as a manufacturer because it takes the raw material and processes it so it can be used by the consumer. Well, the processed flour must then be packaged and branded according to the wholesaler's marketing strategy. Now, once complete, the flour is ready to be sent to market. It's shipped to regional wholesalers who offer it to their customers, like this restaurant, Ben Pao. This is where the final value-added service takes place and is my favorite stop along the supply chain.
Mine too.
Well, good food starts with good ingredients, and in the skilled hands of Chef Jim, a final product is created that meets customer demand. And I learned one universal thing about supply chains. If managed correctly, they always culminate with a satisfied end customer.
Wow, I'm impressed, Dale.
I told you I was paying attention.
Supply chain management is the ultimate competitive advantage. And companies are looking for those employees that help develop good relationships with their key customers, their key suppliers, to more effectively and efficiently manage the supply chain.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
You know, that's enough lecturing, Dale. Why don't we go to my favorite role in the supply chain?
And what's that?
The satisfied consumer. Let's eat.
While on my trip, I met professionals who taught me a lot and made the prospect of a career in supply chain management quite appealing. These are people who appreciate the diversity and the dynamic nature of the field. And as far as I could tell, they actually like their jobs. The Council of Supply Chain Management Professionals is a global organization dedicated to the advancement of this emerging profession. They have local roundtables all over the world that are a great source of information and contacts. To find the roundtable nearest you, visit the Council's website at www.cscmp.org. Just remember, whatever career you choose, you'll come in contact with the global supply chain.
And we're going to get the products, sorry. Supply chain management can be defined as
And what is the definition of supply chain management?
Sorry, can I look at my definition again? Okay, I can be taught slowly. Okay.
Action. All right. not quite so grabby. Okay. And
I just noticed that, let's see, you've got Germany, Japan,
UK,
France.
Oh my,
is that $10,000?
yeah, and you just bought it. Values include things like discipline, great place to work, results orientation, quality, customer satisfaction, and discipline. I just tripped.
I'm in, I don't know.
We'll take you down to the FedEx terminal, and we'll see a plane land. Sorry.
The diverse nature of the business and the camaraderie, put those all together, and that's what makes the supply chain logistics. That's what makes the supply chain logistics field.
oh, you almost had it.
That's what makes it great about working in the supply chain management field. Did I mess that up?
Thank you so much for your time, and Kino, thank you. Thank you very much. It was very nice talking with you. Good boy. Good boy. Well, I think I better get moving then, huh?
Absolutely, you got a full day?
All right. Is there gonna be lunch?
Absolutely.
All right,
Anything
great.
for you, baby.
Great, thanks. So I've noticed a few Hawaiian shirts here. What's going on with that?
Well, my group supports Hawaiian Shirt Friday. We also try to stretch it into Hawaiian Shirt Tuesday and Wednesday if we can get away with that.
All right, Dan. Mahalo.